on out just in time for another storm system to move into the area on Wednesday. So going to give it a few minutes, let people work their way into this live update for, again, one storm leaving, another one coming. But I also do want to look back at this winter storm that we're just on the backside of it, because it put down some impressive snowfall. So we'll go through some of those snowfall totals here in just a few minutes, and then talk about what we can expect into tomorrow morning, into that morning commute, and then with that next storm system that's going to be arriving into the day tomorrow, but even looking forward in towards the weekend and some much warmer temperatures and some of the issues that could lead to. So like I said, we'll give it a few minutes, let people work their way in. I'll show you what those current conditions are looking like across western Montana, and we'll get started here officially in this YouTube Live here in probably about 30 seconds or so. But as you're tuning in, I certainly hope you're having a great night, staying warm and staying safe. I know we've had some big-time issues when it comes to travel throughout the day today, with multiple accidents, including that very terrible one just outside of Frenchtown early in the morning today on Interstate 90, has led to multiple fatalities and multiple injuries as well. So it just kind of goes to show you just how dangerous those roads can be. We're not seeing as bad of impacts right now from the road side of things for areas west of the divide, but still along and east of the divide, roads are in pretty bad shape. So that's going to continue to be a problem overnight tonight. So on that note, again, we'll get started with this officially. As you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from, what kind of conditions you're seeing out your window, and if you know, maybe even how much snow you've seen from this storm system. I know down towards the Bozeman area, it overperformed in a decent way, and even further to the north and west, it overperformed too, with some big time snowfall. So thank you all for tuning in tonight, and let's get started with this. Through the day, we've seen our storm system really pushing from northwest to southeast, seeing some scattered light to moderate snow showers, even still at this time for areas near and east of the divide. Overall, the trend is through the night that will continue. We're going to be left with clearing skies overnight. There's still a question mark about how much clearing we could see, but for areas along and west of the divide, we're likely looking at lows into the teens and single digits. Areas east of the divide, this includes Bozeman, we are going to be looking at temperatures down below zero. Bozeman and areas east could be in the teens and even 20s below zero, so some very cold temperatures are expected as we go throughout the night tonight. And looking at those current temperatures, we're at 18 in Kalispell, 28 in Missoula, 13 in Butte. Right now at 4 in Bozeman, temperatures have stayed pretty consistent for about the last, say, 3 to 4 hours. But if we get a little bit more clearing tonight, that's when those temperatures will be allowed to fall more readily. If the clouds hang on a little bit longer, or maybe don't even dissipate, then we may actually see our temperature stay up just a little bit. But that's one thing models are a little bit torn on what they're expecting. So going into radar, as we loop this over the last 6 hours, as you notice, still very faintly, this zone from Interstate 90 close to the Missoula area down through Butte and Bozeman. We've seen those light snow showers through the afternoon and evening, but they're hardly even showing up here back towards Missoula at this point. So really the trend is going to continue to be a calming one. I am going to jump back because you can see on our Butte camera here from the East Ridge some light snow falling there. This may just be up in the mountains, but a few flurries down in the valleys certainly cannot be ruled out. One thing I completely forgot to mention, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them in the chat section. I'll try and keep an eye on it as we go throughout this update and answer them as we go. But for at least this first part, I really wanted to show you some of these snowfall totals from this storm system. Now that it's starting to exit our region, take a look at some of these highest snowfall totals. Parts of the Mission Mountains, we saw 40 to 50 inches of snow between early Sunday morning and 8 p.m. Tuesday. But even down in our valleys, we saw some very impressive snowfall totals. East-southeast of Pablo, 19.6. Whitehall, Swan Lake, both picked up 18 inches of snow. 16.6 north of Creston, there in the Flathead Valley, just a little bit further south from Creston and Big Fork. 15.4, and west of Kalispell in the Flathead Valley, north of Kyla, 15.3. And that is just some of our highest snowfall totals. I'm going to go to the National Weather Service. Reports have been filtering in throughout the day, so again, that's just a collection of them. But here's a few more of them that I've seen pop in. From Lookout Pass, 20 inches of snow. Lolo Pass, 2 feet of snow. Going over towards the Discovery Ski Area just outside of Georgetown Lake, another report of 2 feet of snow. Just north of Missoula at Stewart Mountain, and this is about a sensor or a site 7,400 feet above sea level, 32 inches of snowfall. So some heavy snow in our mountains, about 1 to 3 inches on average were common. Again, the Mission's 40 to 50 inches in places, but even a few more of those heavier snowfall totals. Evergreen in the Flathead Valley, just under 10 inches. On the west side of Kalispell, 13.7. St. Ignatius, 14 inches. We saw up the Highway 200 corridor anywhere from 6 inches near Plains to 9.1 near Noxon. 12 inches in Haugen on Interstate 90. Taking it a little bit further south, we're looking at Potomac. So this is on the Highway 200 corridor going east out of Missoula. 15 inches in Potomac, 14 and a half in Ovando. Just outside of Tura on I-90, 12 and a half inches. Continuing into southwest Montana, 18 towards Whitehall, 12 near Cardwell, 15 in Logan, 8.5 in Churchill. So I've seen reports of anywhere from about 6 to 9 inches towards the Gallatin Valley, and even a report of 8.2 inches. They're just off of just a couple miles east of Montana State University, a report of 8.2 inches, and that was from 7 a.m. this morning, and we've seen snow there throughout the day, so parts of the Gallatin Valley would not surprise me if we may be closer to maybe 10 to even 12 inches of snow. So some very, very impressive snowfall for our valleys, for our mountains. This is going to be big for our snowpack. So I'm going to try and do a more full update on snowpack after we get past our next storm system, so likely be looking for that on Thursday, and I'll have the latest percentages for our region, but potentially even for the entirety of the state. So that'll be something that I'm working on the side. Additionally, just taking a quick look at road conditions just one more time. Areas west of the divide, primarily we're looking at scattered wet conditions or slush. The big issue with the temperatures falling back below freezing tonight, that could lead to a refreeze. So even though the snow's pretty much ending, has pretty much ended west of the divide other than those few very light showers, we could still be looking at a very slick commute tomorrow morning with that refreeze. Southwest Montana still dealing with snow and ice all over the place because of today's lingering snowfall. So we're still looking at a pretty slick morning commute across all of southwest Montana tomorrow morning. And then unfortunately for the afternoon, with that next storm system rolling in, those travel impacts are going to be likely just as high into the evening commute tomorrow. So that's another unfortunate bit of information with that. So let me get this. We're going to jump to Future Tracker really quick. And while I do that, make sure I haven't missed any comments or questions. Again, feel free to ask if you got questions. Feel free to ask those. Future Tracker's done a good job picking up just a few very light returns here and there. Overnight tonight, we're going to be looking at clearing skies. You can see the clouds starting to dissipate. Just really depends on how much clearing we see, about how cold those temperatures get. But you notice the clouds starting to fill in back from the west. Here comes our next storm system, likely looking at increasing cloud cover through the morning, and potentially seeing our first bits of snow right along the Montana-Idaho state line, primarily up in the mountains to begin, as early as, say, noon to 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. This is just going to continue to spread west to east across the region. And by the time we get to, say, 5, this is looking at 6 o'clock, widespread light to occasionally moderate snowfall. And it's really for the entirety of the area. It's going to take a little bit longer for it to get into Bozeman. So maybe your evening commute isn't as bad. It's going to be very close based on this particular run of the forecast model. This will be passing through relatively quickly. So you'll notice we're still looking at snow all the way through, say, 10 to midnight. But look how quickly this starts to dissipate, still lingering onto the snowfall back into Idaho, down towards Bozeman and West Yellowstone, and then in the higher elevations towards the Swan Mountains and the Mission Mountains, but maybe even a little bit of that trying to hang on to the valleys. But the later into the night we go, outside of along the Montana-Idaho state line and those higher elevations, we're going to be looking at the moisture really running out with this system. And by, say, early Thursday morning, outside of a few showers in the mountains and maybe down towards Bozeman, Gallatin County, Madison County, and Park counties, this system's pretty much going to be on its last legs by the time we get to about noon, and those showers continue into the afternoon. But this is going to be about the time we start to see a warming trend with our temperatures and essentially going from there. But looking at the potential snowfall, for our mountains, we're probably looking at about 2 to as much as 6 inches. Could lead to some minor travel impacts over our mountain passes. For our valleys, again, this is going to be a relatively moisture-starved storm system. I think most valley areas, we're talking a dusting up to 3 inches, though we've seen with our recent storm, if there is any little bits of overperformance, there could be a few localized areas that see 4 to maybe 5 inches of snow, and it really just depends on if you get underneath one of the heavier bands for a longer duration. But again, on average, most areas, a dusting to 3 inches down in our valleys. So there's not going to be necessarily heavy additional impacts from this storm system, but because of all the snow we've already had on the ground and all the snow that's really piling up all over the place, it's not going to take a whole lot to create more issues for the next couple of days. So that's one concern. We do have winter weather advisories that are going to be in effect starting tomorrow afternoon for all of these areas in this kind of purpley blue color. Kalispell, Polson, Missoula, Hamilton, all included in these. Butte and Bozeman, as well as towards Dillon, are not included in these, but I still think Butte, Bozeman, we could be looking at about the same type of situation, 1 to 3 inches. Higher likelihood of maybe some heavier snowfall, more of those potential up to 4 inches back here into northwest and west central Montana. And those begin at 1 a.m. tomorrow afternoon, continuing into Thursday morning. And one note on the winter storm watches, from Marias Pass down towards Rogers Pass and areas east, there isn't likely going to be much in the way of snowfall out there, maybe 1 to 2 inches on the high side. There's going to be some very strong winds, so we could see near blizzard conditions due to the lighter snowfall, but even blowing snow from the divide and east from there. So if you have any travel plans that take you out here towards Cut Bank, Browning, Marias Pass, Rogers Pass, Choteau, Augusta, be prepared for some pretty nasty travel conditions just from the blowing snow. But these will continue into Thursday before things start to quiet down. Now, then we get into the end of this week, and like I was saying, there is a warm-up on the way. We've been with temperatures for most areas below average for the better parts of the last 3 weeks or so. Looking at some improvement, Butte, we're going to be in the mid-30s by Thursday, upper 30s by Friday, and take a look at Saturday and Sunday. Low to mid-40s are going to be common. We're going to be looking at those temperatures anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 degrees above average for most of western Montana. But with that, we're also going to see another storm system roll in. But because of those warmer temperatures, it's going to be a little bit different than the ones we've seen in recent weeks. So here's our first storm system, Wednesday, starting to exit on Thursday. That next one arrives late Saturday and into Sunday, and this is primarily going to be for northwest and west central Montana. we're going to see an atmospheric river roll in, and that's going to bring us some heavier precipitation, specifically up into our mountains. And let me get to the correct spot for this. Let's go here. So, starting early Saturday, you see this moisture up here starting to show up. This is going to expand in coverage as we get into Saturday evening. And you notice there's a lot more in the way of greens and pinks showing up. And that is because the snow levels, and I'll spin this back around really quick, through this period, Friday into Saturday and Sunday, we're going to see those snow levels increasing up to, say, 5, maybe even 6,000 to 7,000 feet as this warm air starts to override. So from even some of our passes, we may be talking about rain instead of snow, something we'll certainly have to keep a very close eye on because of all the snow we've had. That can lead to runoff, minor flooding, ponding on roads, and that can create a plethora of issues in its own right. So continuing on, this is looking into Sunday morning. Widespread rain in the valleys for northwest Montana. Overnight and into the morning hours, the temperatures could get cold enough. We could see a little bit more of a mix of rain and snow, but I think for the majority of this weekend system, we're going to be looking at rain in the valleys, snow at pass level, if not higher than that. That continues through the day on Sunday, and then we start to see things build back in. So really, Sunday looks pretty soggy across the region right now. Plenty of time to watch that for sure. But even some of this moisture works its way down towards Butte and Bozeman by the time we get into Monday morning. But up in our mountains, this could be another heavy snow event. But then again, further down in elevation, that becomes more of a rain event. You see this continues all the way into Monday. So really, this is just going to be, we continue with this active weather period. It's just going to be slightly different than what we've dealt with over the last couple of weeks, where it's been primarily cold weather, ice, snow, those kind of travel impacts. Now we'll transition over to valley rain, even some mid-elevation rain with the snowfall up in our mountains. Not expecting freezing rain with this by any means, as it looks like right now. It should just be either rain or snow, or a little bit of the combination of the two. But one thing I do want to point out, and as I was saying, there are some other issues that come with the warmer temperatures and the heavy rainfall. So some potential impacts that we could see from that: the water ponding on the roads. When you have rain falling on top of snow, it's not like the ground can absorb it. It's just going to run off of that snowfall, and that even in the valleys, we're going to be dealing with melting of the snowfall with those temperatures in the mid 40s. So ponding on the roads, valleys, mountain passes certainly looks likely. And then you have all of that moisture on the road. Temperatures may fall below freezing each night. Then we have another problem with the refreeze and travel issues in that concern as well. So some morning icing is certainly going to be possible. And then on top of that, one more other issue we could be seeing with these warming temperatures, you may have noticed a lot of ice on our rivers. I know here in Missoula, the Clark Fork River is solid in certain places with the water, flowing underneath it, but there's tons of ice there. With the warming temperatures, these ice flows can start to break up and start flowing downriver. Well, if it essentially dams off the river, you could end up with ice jam flooding. We've already seen some of that towards Ennis. That one will, from everything that's expected, the advisory on that flood, that area, will be allowed to expire at noon tomorrow as the ice jam is starting to break up and that water is starting to flow out. But that's just kind of a localized version of what we could see for many areas of western Montana, just because of the warming temperatures, the ice flow, and then the backup because of the ice blocking the natural flow of the river. Something we'll have to keep a very close eye on. But on top of that, speaking of ice jams, certainly tune in on Friday. I'll have my newest 3D weather that's all about ice jams and a little bit more information about some of the climatology of when they commonly occur, some of the impacts about those, as well as, some of the factors that can even lead to further issues with ice jams. But that'll be airing on Friday afternoon. So pretty much that is everything that I had for this YouTube live update. Thank you all again for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, I am going to flip this back around just to show you some of these snowfall totals that we saw from the storm system, because these were quite impressive. And then we'll start to wrap things up. We're still dealing with a little bit of snowfall in southwest Montana. Travel impacts will continue overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning with some icing concerns. But the Mission Mountains were our big winners. 40 to 50 inches of snow have fallen since Sunday morning. In some of those highest peaks from the Snowtel sites, we were getting this information. And then even in our valleys, Pablo 19.6, Whitehall, Swan Lake 18 inches, near Creston over 16 and a half, just outside of Big Fork, just under 15 and a half for there, and north of Kyla. And again, that's just some of the snowfall totals. Even towards the Missoula Valley, we saw anywhere from about 9 to nearly 14 inches of snow here. Similar stories through the Mission Valley, the Flathead Valley. Now we're seeing those in the Gallatin Valley as well, anywhere from at least, say, 6 to 9 inches from earlier in the day, but the snowfall has continued. So thank you all again for tuning in. If you have any photos or videos of the snow, or even some of the road conditions, if you've gotten some images of those, or how are you enjoying the snow, certainly feel free to share those photos and videos with us at nbcmontana.com/chime-in. Tune into our live broadcast at 10 o'clock. We'll have the latest news and weather updates. And then, of course, tomorrow morning, NBC Montana Today with Jason Hurst and Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster. They'll have the latest on those travel impacts for the morning commute. And then I will be back for the evening commute forecast as we head into tomorrow with that next storm system rolling in. Depending on how things are going, I may or may not do another YouTube live for tomorrow's storm. Got a couple of other things that I'm working on that may prevent me from having enough time to try and get one in. But if I can, I'll try and sneak one in real quick. And in that case, you might see me again tomorrow evening. So I hope you have a great evening. Stay warm, stay safe, and I will see you all on the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs.